Good morning. This is Jacob Folger, sculptor and artist, and today we are going to make a gargoyle. Now this is going to be more of a miniature size gargoyle, but you could change the size of the pieces that we're making, and you actually could make it larger if you wanted to, or you could just make it along with me about the size that I'm doing, and later on do a bigger one if you like. Because basically everything that we're doing here could be done larger or smaller today. Before we start, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need some self-hardening clay, and I prefer either Marblex or Mexican clay. When it dries, it stays very hard, but it is not waterproof, okay? Just keep that in mind. You wouldn't want to put this outdoors. And when you buy your clay, you'll see it on the shelf. It'll be in a box, and inside the box it will be wrapped in plastic. I want you to take your finger when you're there at the store and push it into the clay. And if it's not soft and pliable like this, do not buy it. And the reason why is because it'll be hard and you will not be able to knead it more than likely unless you got really, really strong hands, and you probably don't. So I would just make sure you get yourself some soft clay like this, okay? Like this, all right? In addition to the clay, we're going to need a container full of water, okay? Just regular water, tap water, and some paint brushes like this. And probably with your paint brushes, you're going to need two different bristles, one that's very soft like this one, and one that's harder and stiffer like that one, okay? And also, you'll need some kind of sharp knife. This is a little X-Acto knife I like to use. And you can get a package of wood or plastic tools. There are different shapes similar to this one, and that's also a good thing to have. You can get a package, and most of these supplies at a arts and crafts type store or an art store, okay? And also finally a mister for spraying the clay and making it, keeping it moist if you need to. Sometimes the air will be warm and dry in the house and or wherever you're working, and the clay will dry out, and you don't want it to dry out too much until you're done with working with your piece. Okay? And then we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need for a gargoyle is some kind of pedestal or something for him to sit on. And so what I'll do is I'll tear off a piece of clay about maybe this big, and I want to form it into a ball to start off with. So what I'll do is I'll put it between the palms of my hands like this, and I'll roll it like this, and that will form it into a little ball, okay, like that, okay. And now I'm going to roll it between my palms again, but this way, to and fro like that, and that will form it into a little pedestal like that. Now I'm going to form it with my hands, just pressing on the clay to make it more uniform and more flat on the top and bottom, similar to that. Okay? So that is the pedestal for the little gargoyle to sit on. Okay? Next we're going to make his legs. So we'll take a piece of clay like that, and we'll roll it into an oblong shape or noodle shape like this. You can start off with a ball by rolling it in the palms of your hands. Make this out of the way here. Like that. And then to and fro to make it a long shaped noodle shape. I call this the simple shapes method of sculpting. This is a beginner method, but I use it a lot myself sometimes still when I'm making pieces. And it's easy to do, easy to visualize, and so that's actually going to be his legs. We'll bring the pedestal back over here, and we'll fold it at half like that. And I want to tell you real quick that whenever you're joining two pieces of clay, I want you to do this, okay? I want you to take your knife like this and score the piece that's attaching to the other piece like that. The piece it's attaching to like that. Take your paintbrush, touch it with water on both pieces, and then just kind of squish them together like that. Now, just to speed this film up, I'm not going to do this every time, but I'm going to remind you as we go. I'll just say go ahead and score it, wet it, and put it together, okay? That way, the piece will be a lot more sturdy as you put it together, but for demonstration purposes, I will not do that every time here in this video. Okay, once he's seated, so you can obviously see that's his legs. For a gargoyle, as far as I'm concerned, he probably will have a knee like this, so you would bend it up like that and put one leg like that, then the other up like that, and you have then the legs and the knees as the gargoyle will be sitting there. You can push and squeeze to create little knees more pointed like that. Okay? The next part will be to make the torso of his body. And so all you do is you can also roll between your fingers like I'm doing here to form his body or the shape of his torso, his stomach, and his chest. And remember, score it, wet it, and put the two pieces together like that, and press them and turn them and kind of mush them into place. Give him the torso of his body like that. Okay, the next step is his arms. Okay, and to do that, it's very similar to the legs, only the ball will be a little bit smaller. Okay, and you will roll it. You can roll it between your fingers or the palms of your hands, or like this, and then this way, to and fro, to create a long noodle shape. A long shape, okay? I'm going to do it between my fingers here so that you can see it easier. I've got the camera between me and the object, me and the sculpture, and that kind of cuts into my energy and that sort of thing. It makes it difficult for me to make a really beautiful piece, because normally I would have this piece close to my eye, way up front here, but I can't do that. In order to teach you, I feel like I need to have a camera like this. That way I know that whatever I see, you see. So keep in mind that this piece may not be as pristine and wonderful at the end of the class as yours will be. Yours will probably be better looking, even though it might be the first one. So we got the long shape here, which is the noodle for his arms. Okay, you just put that on top of his torso like that. Score it and wet it, and then press it into place. And then you can also take your thumb or your fingers and blend the arm shape up onto his chest. And you can do the same on the back, like this. If you're joining one piece to another, it's always better to blend downward or sideways from the smaller piece to the larger piece. In this case, up for the legs and rear end to the back. Okay, like that. Alright, so now we've got his arms on there, and the next step will be to take a sip of coffee. Coffee is a good thing at 4:30 in the morning. Yes, that's true. I am up at 4:30 in the morning because I like to be, I'm an early riser ever since I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Army. They taught me how to get up early, and that was 30 some years ago, but I still do get up. I still do get up early in the morning. And actually, I think it's the best time of day, personally. Okay, so now we're gonna make a head. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself here with the head. So what we're gonna do is take a small ball of clay, and we're gonna roll it into a ball like this. You can do it between your fingers or the palms of your hands. For the sake of the video, I'm doing it between my fingers. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to hold one side of the clay like this. I'm going to bring this a little closer. One side of the clay like this, and the other side with your other fingers, and I want you just to pull a little bit to kind of create a little snoot or nose, kind of like what a dog might have, because you know gargoyles are similar to dogs in that way. And there we go, like this here. Okay. Alright, now, okay, so we've got basically that kind of shape going on there. Okay. Now, before you actually attach the head to his body, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more definition on his face. I'm going to move his body back here with the pedestal, just so we can see this fairly up close. Now, one thing that you can do is you can get your wood tool, your paintbrush, and you can do this with the with a tool that has like a paintbrush. The end of a paintbrush, you can make his eye socket with that tool, and just press it into place. Now keep in mind, if this is your first gargoyle or the first time you've ever done this, you might want to practice it. Also keep in mind that if you keep the clay moist by keeping it, not soaking wet but somewhat wet, then you can change what you did the first time, or you can make one head and then try another head and do a succession of them just to try to get better at it. But basically what we're doing is trying to create little eye sockets like that. And then you can take another tiny bit of clay, like a very small bit like this, like a piece like that. See how small that is? That would be his eyeball. And just press that into the hole like that. Very, very small balls here. Just press them into the, well, that was too small really. Let's see. You just take it out, make it a little bit bigger. If it's, you can also pinch off a piece with your nail, so your fingernail, get it to the right size and put it in there. Okay, like that. And there's two ways to do eyes. One way is just to have no pupil at all. So you got the eye socket, the eyeball, and no pupil. Or you could take the back end of a smaller paintbrush like this one, and you could put a little indentation into the eyeball to make him look like he's got color in his eyes like we do. Most eyeballs have color. They have a pupil, and that, if you look to the left with your eyes, if you go look in the mirror, you'll see it'll look like you're looking left, and the only reason why is because you've got a pupil that's going in that direction, or going in that direction, So that would give you the idea that you have color in your eyes. There's two different ways of sculpting eyes. That's one, and the other is to leave no pupil. I personally like pupils if I can do them, and on a very small piece, sometimes it's kind of difficult, but then I'll do that. Next is eyelids. And my eyelids and my eyes, by the way, completely are stylized. They're not like life, but they look very good and people do like them. So, you will pick up your own methods and you can look at other people's work and videos to see what they do and, try different things. But for me and for the sake of this gargoyle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a eyelid that is also a maybe eyebrow, and I'll start to create expression in the eye. And if you look at that, it's almost kind of angry. Gargoyles are meant to ward off evil spirits. So therefore, I like that idea very much. So I'll make another one here. I'm going to get them both on there so I can at least see how it is, how they look. And I'll push them down. Now I want to say another thing is, if you ever look at somebody's eye and their eyes are open, you'll notice that sometimes their eyelids are so high up because they're all excited or abusing drugs or something like that, and so the whites of their eyes at the top will shine or show. I personally don't like the look, so what I do is, for most normal eyes, I will put the eyelids down so that it's covering that first part of the pupil, the very top of it, kind of like that. Still, he looks kind of angry. Then I'll pinch off the end over here just by taking my finger or a knife or something, in my case a finger, and I'll slide that off there like that, and that will give terminate the end of the eyelid. And now you've got kind of this mean looking gargoyle going on, and you can do it, you can play with it. I recommend making a mock one like that you don't really care how well it goes, and just to play with it, because you can change the eyelids. If this eyelid was then up higher, or not shaped just like that, he would be less angry looking. So I would recommend playing with it before you decide. So I think he's pretty cool, almost like that. And so right now I'm just going to leave him like that for now, okay? And then next we need to, let me just put his little stuff there. Okay, next is his nostrils. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can do it with the back of a paintbrush, or you can do it with the back of a tool like this. And you can just make an indentation like that on both sides. That's a little crooked. That's alright. So this is one thing I should show you. You can actually blend that out, almost erase it, almost like a pencil eraser. If it's like that, if it's not the way you want, you can press it and blend it and actually straighten it out, and see that actually looks better. Now keep in mind again, I do not have wrist close to my eye. I'm trying to teach you. That's what I'm doing here. And I still think he might look pretty good by the end of the day here. Okay. Now for his jaw, and for his lower mouth, you can press the tool in, basically in a way of just pressing and carving in a way to create his mouth. Like this. See? Actually it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good considering I have a camera in between me and the object. So it actually does not look too bad. Okay, so the mouth now, I want to just touch on this real quick, is that you also, like with the eyes, and also with the nostrils even, by pushing and forming, you can actually create more expression. And so let's look at the mouth for a minute. We could press this in a little bit deeper and create a little bit more depth and shadow, giving him more of a snarly kind of look. You could play with your dog and get him riled up and get him snarling maybe, and if he's not a mean dog, or you could look at some pictures of dogs and get some pictures of them snarling or being playful or whatever, and you can actually create more definition and more expression in the mouth by doing different things. Turning it down, of course, turning the mouth down at the end there would make him look more angry, but if you turned it up at the other side, just for sake of demonstration, you could actually make him look like he's smiling. But because his eyes are sort of angry, if he's smiling, he actually looks a little bit more sinister. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Again, I would practice a lot on the head and try it in different ways, and then pick maybe do 2 or 3 or 4 different ones, get more comfortable with it, and choose the one you like to use for the particular piece that we're doing. In this case, I think I want his mouth down, because this gargoyle is actually turning out pretty good, and I want him to work out for me too, and then have me making this gargoyle, reproducing it for my line of gargoyles. Since I returned to gargoyles, by the way, I returned to gargoyles after 7 years, and sculpture in general, just this past summer, 2014. After 7 years, I hadn't sculpted. I was doing other things, a lot of digital art and that sort of thing. I decided to return. I love it so much, and I did. But back in the 90s, a friend had given me a book called Nightmares in the Sky, and it really inspired me, and I started making gargoyles one after another, and I filled my house with them, actually. And I started opening my art studio to the public, and the Washington Post in Washington, D.C. got wind of it and did a big article on me, and then I was the modern gargoyle master, as I actually dubbed myself. And before long, the Washington National Cathedral Museum shop and many other stores and catalogs and shops had picked me up as not only a gargoyle maker, but just a sculptor in general. And so that's what I did, and that was in the 90s, and it was a lot of fun. So I decided I'm going to come back to gargoyles, and they actually are becoming popular again now. So it's actually a fun thing to do, but it also can be a way to earn a living. So anyways, I think I want to carry this out and actually finish this gargoyle later, maybe get it completely nice and cool. And I won't probably do that all on video, but you will see it, I assure you, at some point. Either go to my website later on, maybe in a couple weeks. And it is now, just to tell you, 2015 January. Okay, just at the end of January now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and complete what we're doing here. So move on here. Now for my gargoyle here, I want his head down below his shoulders. So I'm going to just take my fingers and pinch out. Whoops, I pinched off his arm. Whoops, that's all right. So I'm going to switch that back in there. If that happens, remember to score and wet it before you do that, okay? I'm just creating like a little pocket here for his head. And score and wet it before you put it on, and just squish it into place. Now, see, I will make a mold of this piece. I do not teach mold making yet with my videos, but there's many videos online that do. And if you want to mold a piece, you can do that. The reason why I don't do it is because my method of mold making, I'm completely self-taught artist, and I think there's better methods on the market. You can find out fairly easily how to make molds, and it's really a good thing. Some of the products out there and some of the people that are making molds and teaching that, and I'd rather leave it to them for mold making, because I think later on I might do it, but right now I'd rather not. And I've made hundreds, if not thousands, of molds for myself, and they worked out just fine. But there's other products now, you know, technology and all that sort of thing, and you can make better products. and better molds if you try to just look around. So we've got his head on there, and now we're going to, I want to start getting him to kind of come down now to closer to his legs, and adding expression with his arms a little bit. And this is more about you just trying and playing with it. Okay, there we go. And he's kind of sitting and leaning down. And a lot of it is the form and that sort of thing. Let's just pause for a moment. If your piece is getting a little bit stiff on you, you want to set your sprayer on a misting position by turning this here. If it's tighter, it'll be, if you tighten all the way like that, you probably won't be able to spray it all. But if you just let up on it a little bit, turn it the other way, it'll be more of a mist. Okay, and just mist it. Not tons, you just have to get it moist. The whole idea here is to get it moist, because if you spray it and spray it and spray it, you'll turn it into just mud, and you won't be able to work with it easy, or you'll have to wait to work with it. Okay, so he's more just in this kind of crouching position, which is common with gargoyles. But now what I want to do is, so we use a simple shape sculpting technique mostly to create the figure. Now we have to start to use our tool a little bit to carve and make it more uniform in the position that we want. And at first I would recommend just trying to blend the pieces together, sculpt it a little bit. And this is a good opportunity really to start to learn how your gargoyle might be if he was seated. Really, you could use models. You could use your little brother or something like that, or your little sister, or a dog, or I know this is maybe not associated, but basically just to get the idea of what body shapes are, with the legs, how the legs are shaped sitting in this position or similar to it. You know, I mean, almost anybody really could be a model for this this part here. A dog, a cat, or even a human sitting in this position, whatever is comfortable. And if you can't, then you can also look at pictures to get the idea. If you're looking at other people's gargoyles, I don't recommend copying other people's work. Of course, if you're new to this, you'd probably find that extremely difficult anyways. But just to get an idea, you know, also having a gargoyle or that's seated in this position or something, if you own one, if you like gargoyles, obviously, if you're making gargoyles, if you're here to make a gargoyle, you more than likely have a gargoyle. That way you could use that as an example to basically get the position, but not just the position, but the shape of the muscles, the shape of the body, to give it the look that you want. And also, at the same time, we're trying to, okay, so yeah, we're trying to blend here, and then, you know, continuing with the sculpture. So we also need to add feet, a little ball, roll to a noodle, flatten it slightly so it looks like that, and then just put it on maybe like that before you blend it in. And always remembering to score and wet it before you actually join the pieces. But before you do that, you might want to get the feet into a position that you like, that you're comfortable with. All right. that one is sitting a little bit on top of the other. It could be more like that. It could be just side by side like that, more symmetrical. I kind of like the idea that it's like one over the other like that. A lot more people seem to buy my gargoyles when they're a little bit more cute than they are a little bit more scary. I make scary looking gargoyles. Oh boy, I sure do. But, I don't do it as much now as I used to because I think that people are a little bit like put off by it. So I kind of like the idea of one foot over the other. You could give definition of the toes by make sure your tool is fairly clean and just put a little indentation like that where the toes would go. You can do it like that, or you can actually do it individually by rolling, and this would be harder of course, is to roll little balls and make little toes like that. Remembering to score, to wet, okay? And just place them into place like that. And then once they're in there, just blend them and sculpt them and that sort of thing to create them like that. Now, these are things that you have to play with because it takes time, okay? He needs ears, I think, okay? So you roll a little ball, not so big maybe, and roll a little bit ball like that, and then squeeze it. You can put it like that, score it, wet it, put it on, and then also do your blending. You know what your blending is now, is blending one piece to another, the smaller piece to the larger piece. In this case, the ear to the head. Put the ear on, okay, like that. You also can, these are more cub-like or bear cub round ears like that. You also can make them pointed like that, okay. The one thing you keep in mind is if you're going to mold this piece, if you later on you decide you want to mold it, if you make it like that, the ears could break off, so you might want to make them smaller. And that's what I'm going to do in my case because I don't want them to break off. So I'm just going to make them like that. And like that. And then what you can do is when you blend them, always scoring and wetting, remember, yep. You can take this tool and you can carve out the inner part of the ear. So he still looks kind of mean, but he's got little round ears like a little teddy bear. And of course, if you're making ears that you want to mold, you can make them thicker. That way they don't break very easily. Okay. Wings. How do we make wings? You tell me. How about that? Okay, we roll a ball. You have a piece of clay. You roll a ball. And then you can start to roll a noodle shaped, and you can make it slightly pointed at the end like that. Doesn't have to look great at this point because you're getting the idea, and you can probably sculpt it pretty well now. You squish it a little bit and then place it on the back, scoring and wetting it like that. And then bring it around like that. So on the back, blending it in. And they're more just hints of wings. They're definitely wings, but they're not as defined. Make two. Roll it between your palms like that. Slightly pointed like that. Squeeze it down like that. And apply it like that. And then just try to bring it in. Again, it depends on if you're molding it. If you're going to mold it, You don't want little skinny little things going every which ways, because if you do, it'll be hard to mold it. Just think about it that way. I mean, molds have to pick up all the details of the original, and if you got a skinny little wing shooting off in this distance over here, you might want to mold this. You never know. Gargoyles are not, they don't have to be really perfect. In fact, when I first started sculpting them, I was a beginner sculptor. And within just a year or so, I had the Washington Post doing an article on me. And the reason why is because gargoyles, it's up to the artist almost. So you might want to, even this rough one right here, I bet you some people would like to have it. So just keep that in mind, all right? Now, sometimes when I make a gargoyle, I leave all the sculpting marks in, yet I've done the detailing, I've done the finishing, I've done all that, but I'm just leaving the sculpting marks, my finger marks, my tool marks, that sort of thing in, because gargoyles have a stony appearance often. So if you're leaving sculpting marks in when you go to do your finish, and by the way, I have another video that shows how to do finishes. I actually have a couple videos, and I'm going to have more coming soon. One is how to do a bronze finish with a green patina. It's so realistic, it's amazing. And the other is how to do a stone finish on plaster and concrete. So, but if you were to do that, if you were to leave the sculpting marks in when you've completed the piece, when you do the stone finish, that texture, the texture of the markings from the tools and your fingers and such, with the stone finish makes it really look like stone. It's really pretty amazing. So that's a consideration. But then some of you might like to have it very smooth and pristine looking. And if that's the case, you can take a paintbrush and wet the brush, get it nice and wet. And not too wet. Now, certain places you don't want to put a lot of water, and that's around the eyes. The eyes, the nose. The reason why is because the clay will get really soft and it might muck up your work. It might muddy up the work. The clay might get muddy. If you do that, a lot of water around the eyes or other tiny details like that, you could do that. So just be careful. What I would recommend doing is after dipping your brush in the water, take some of it off and maybe just wipe it on something like your hand or the table or even a towel to get most of the water off before you start putting it around the eyes. Okay? You can put it around the eyes, just don't put it around the eyes when it's really wet, the brush. The other thing to tell you is that some brushes, like this particular one, has a very soft bristle. It's very soft. See how soft that is? Well, I've got another brush here that's harder. It's harder. It's not as soft. This brush would be good at getting the original piece to be smooth, and then after you've got it somewhat smooth, so we'll start over here on the back perhaps, and just start brushing it like that. Just keep brushing it, and in a few minutes it'll start to get really, really, really smooth. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. And again, if your piece is hardening up while you're working on it, if it's getting dry or something like that, you'll want to go ahead and wet it. You can wet it with your mister or your brush. And then the other thing is, if you want to take a break, if you ever want to stop, you can wrap it up in a plastic bag or a piece of plastic to keep it moist. So you can do that too. So you can just go around and get this nice and the way you want it. And when you're using a hard brush, of course it's going to leave little lines from the bristles in the clay. You can take your smaller brush and just go over it to give it that nice smooth appearance. Okay. It takes a little while to do this, but it's rewarding and it's actually very fun and relaxing. I think I enjoy just sitting, and after I've finished a piece or whatever, to sit down and just relax and take my time and go around and make it the way I like. You can also, while you're doing that, you can add more clay perhaps, or you might want to, in this case here, like I want to make his knee on this side a little bit more prominent, so I'll just add a piece of clay like that, and then I'll sculpt it in like this. Okay, so then I can add clay, I can add, and then I can smooth, and then I can do or whatever. The other thing you can do is you can add clay, you can get it all smooth the way you want it, and then you can add the sculpting marks. You could just, you know, go around and do this, squeeze it a little bit, pinch it here and there. That way, because the idea of the sculpting marks, leaving the sculpting marks in, is for texture. It's not to get out of finishing your sculpture. I'd like to see you guys out there, you know, finishing your work, getting it done, completing it. And then if you want to do that kind of texture look, I like it. I think it's nice. I did a sculpture. I'll probably put a few pictures on here just to show you some of the pieces I've done. But I will tell you this: I used to have a lot of gargoyles, and I don't have them anymore. You know, when I liquidated my work, I liquidated what I was doing, and I stopped doing it. I have some old pictures, but mostly the pieces I have now are not, you know, anywhere near the amount that I had in the 90s. So, but I'll probably put at least part of that Washington Post article on the video, and I also have one on my website if you want to go check it out, because there's pictures on there. There's some of the older works and that sort of thing are there. Anyway, so this is getting it close to where I wanted, but you know what I noticed about this piece is he's looking down, which he should be, because he's a gargoyle, and gargoyles are generally perched up high. So what I would like to do that's different than it is now is to change it slightly by adding to the pedestal and making the pedestal taller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another pedestal right here. I'll put him back out of the way. I've got another piece of clay here. I'm going to make a taller pedestal. And I'm just going to add it to the current one. And always, please, 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 for your future generations, save your work, keep your work, have copies of your work for ongoing. In order for that to be the case, you're going to have to always do your scoring. Score both surfaces when you're joining two surfaces. Score it. And then wet it both sides with a paintbrush. There we go. That one there. That one there. And then join the two. You can add clay to the sides to make it bigger, but this actually, now, wouldn't it be neat to drill a hole and put a pen in the other side? All right, let me see if I can get this out. Let me see it. There we go. So he's much taller now. He's almost 6 inches tall, 5 or 6 inches tall, and I can carve it out and later and make it sturdy. But probably what I would do is get it to about the height and straightness that I want, and then just lay it down, supporting it a little bit like this. Okay, and I'll just let it lay there for 15 minutes, because the clay will start to stiffen up, and then it won't be flipping, flopping every which way. But, you know, this is how you make a gargoyle. Actually, that's basically it. If you want to rest or take a break, you can, wrap it in plastic. If it's getting wet, dry on you, you can mist it with water or hit it with a paintbrush. Okay, and there we go. So, make a gargoyle. They're really fun. And like I said, I mean, you could look at what other people are making, and old pieces and pieces from medieval times and pieces around the cathedral or whatever. I just don't recommend copying work. You don't want to copy other people's work, that's for sure. But you'll get your own skills and ideas, and it'll start to work out for you, and you'll have a good time, and they're a lot of fun. And then do a craft show and see how it goes. And also send me a picture, please. Please send me a picture and comment, and subscribe to my channel. Spread the news. It is actually easier to sculpt than you think. Good thanks to y'all. Jacob Folger, sculptor, artist. Please visit my website, jacobfolger.com. Peace and good things.